Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us here live in person at Toronto Western. And for those of you watching us from across the JDMI sites, welcome. It's my honor to introduce Mark. Mark Given is a certified medical radiation technologist in both radiological technology and magnetic resonance imaging. As the Director of Professional Practice at the Canadian Association of Medical Radiation Technologists, Mark is responsible for the development of the CAMRT's Best Practice Guidelines, Choosing Wisely Canada recommendations, Advanced Practice Initiatives, and the Leadership Development Institute. Prior to taking his current position at CAMRT, Mark was the Manager of Diagnostic Imaging at the IWK Health Centre in Halifax, and has held a variety of positions at several hospitals, including Alberta's Children's Hospital and the Hospital for Sick Children in Toronto. Please help me give a warm welcome to Mark, who was previously a member of our JDMI family before we were JDMI. The topic of his presentation is Moving the Profession Forward, Communities of Practice and Advanced Practice. Welcome, Mark.
Thank you, Jean, and thank you guys for taking some time to attend the session, both in person and virtually online. I do appreciate you taking your time after your work shifts have ended to listen to the talk. So today I'm going to talk on two of the things that are some burning platforms from a CMRT perspective in terms of how we want to advance the profession, really starting with communities of practice, but I'll start with advanced practice. Over the last couple of days, we've been trying to move some agenda forward on that at a national level, and I'll talk to you about some of the things that we've been doing in that front as well. But I thought I'd start with a little bit of status update on terms of where we are with advanced practice and medical imaging across Canada. Starting with the rationale of why we think advanced practice is important. We'll define advanced practice through some of the work that we've done through our advanced practice framework. I'll talk about some of the discussions that we've been having with medical imaging communities across the country. And I'll talk to you about some of the work that we're doing at championing sites to start to develop advanced practice roles. And then ultimately, I'll talk about what we did over the last day or two to start moving forward with the development of an advanced practice and medical imaging task force. So the rationale for advanced practice is pretty simple. We want things to be clinically responsible, and we want things to improve patient care. We want to look at things that are going to improve improve cost efficiencies and contain medical imaging services in terms of cost and or wait lists as well. And we really want to have another level of clinical practice for MRTs to attain to. So in the current model of the MRT trajectory, you kind of get to a point where you become a seasoned tech, you become an experienced tech, you become a charge tech, and then you really have a couple of things to do that you can do. You can go into the management stream or a leadership stream, but if you don't want to do either of those, or you want to be an educator, you have not very many options. So a lot of people do leave our profession to go into other things like becoming radiologists or physicists or different things along those lines. So we want to have an upward trajectory that's clinical in nature that allows our people to become that advanced practitioner that they want to be, and try to keep them in the profession and keep them engaged. We really believe that advanced practice is an innovation that could be beneficial for the healthcare system. So what we're really looking for is we're really looking to impact patient communities and health populations. And the way we see this happening is developing innovative models of care to optimize our scope of practice to really improve the patient outcomes. And what that looks like is going to be different from site to site. So what we're really hoping for is that the communities and the hospitals and the facilities will be able to identify some items and topics where they think would have benefit for these advanced practice roles and try to move them forward. So from a definition perspective, what we've been trying to do is we've been trying to set the stage for what advanced practice is. We developed an advanced practice framework in 2012, I believe, to really get rid of some of the existing confusion about the role and to try to get a common understanding of what advanced practice was from the beginning. The fact that we don't have advanced practice roles that are fully developed in the Canadian context, it makes it easier for us to contain a national consistency from the start. So as people are aware, medical radiation technology is regulated at the provincial level. So we have 6 regulatory bodies within the country and 4 provinces that aren't regulated at all. And if everybody made it their own standard of what advanced practice is, it would really make it a mess for us to try to clean it up on the back end. So we're trying to take a proactive approach to make sure that we're in alignment with everything as we go. This is the definition for what we believe advanced practice is. This was a painstaking effort to get through this with all the different stakeholders in the room. We've had physicians, we've had our regulators, our provincial associations, our councils, different committees and different things taking a shot at the definition. And every word that we've chosen in here is something that's probably been debated for days and hours and weeks, depending on what we're doing. But I'll just give it a bit of an overview on what we think are the key elements of it. So I'll read the first paragraph. Advanced practice in medical radiation technology is defined as a higher level of practice wherein clinical responsibilities routinely exceed the current expectations of practice. Advanced practice roles require analytical skills to synthesize evidence-based knowledge to autonomously work towards optimal patient outcomes. And really what we see are the keys for this is the patient outcomes. So we really want to find roles that are going to improve that. When we're talking about advanced practice roles, we believe that the MRTs that are going to be taking on these responsibilities need to have a higher level of clinical thinking and the complex decision making in order to make these decisions. And the autonomy of role is very key. So we want these people to be trained to take on responsibilities that are routinely from other professions such as nursing or physicians, but we want them to be doing that in an autonomous manner in terms of their scope of practice. And it's really a combination of the clinical practice elements, but also the leadership skills. And when we're talking about the leadership skills, we're talking about a lot of the things that you guys are working on here at JDMI in order to become academic in nature. So the academic and research components, the education components are all considered to be key elements of what we consider to be advanced practice. And the bottom half of the definition here, we're talking about advanced practice MRT is able to practice these roles due to their advanced clinical and theoretical knowledge, skills, and judgment acquired through a relevant graduate level education program or equivalent. Now that's an absolute mouthful, but what we're trying to say is that we believe ultimately down the road is that people that are going to be taking these advanced practice roles will be master's qualified. But when we're in the development phase for these kind of roles, we realize that a lot of people are diploma grads. There isn't any standardized master's programs across the country, so we have to be flexible in terms of how we do that. So those of you that aren't aware, we've developed a full comprehensive advanced practice and radiation therapy competency profile, and we also have a certification process for advanced practice and radiation therapy. Those pieces have been put in place for us, so we know exactly what is advanced and what isn't, and we're hoping to develop those types of tools for the medical imaging community as we go forward. I'm going to talk to you about the API focus group. So we've gone to 8 different cities and we've had conversations with different groups about what advanced practice roles would look like, what they would feel like, and how they might be integrated into their own facilities. And this has been the first baby step of many steps that will have to take place in order for this to be successful. So we talked about identifying a lot of the issues and the barriers that an APMI role could potentially fill. And some of the roles that we've come up with are around appropriateness of imaging services, navigating patients through the complex systems. We all know that there's a lot of patients that will have to have multiple different types of exams and will have a complex trajectory through the imaging world in order to get the diagnosis or even just to stay on top of their disease sites. Interventional radiography, breast imaging, patient sedation, more focusing on the pediatric populations. And then there's roles that we've been looking that are both BMD and MR specific as well. So the biggest question that we're getting right now is whatever role are we developing, is it advanced? So we try to use our advanced practice and radiation therapy competency profile to challenge if the role that they're looking at is actually going to be truly advanced. And I'll give you an example of a role that we've been looking at in one of our sites. I believe this is from Halifax. So there's 3 things that they're looking at having technologists perform. So technologists would be triaging the requisitions to see if they're appropriate for CT general and MRI. They'd be doing data research and audits to go against criteria that have been pre-established by the CAR and using existing guidelines and being able to communicate. So the list of the 17 items on the side are the competency profile pieces from the advanced practice and radiation therapy. And this particular role does click off most of them. The one that it doesn't click off is number 8, which is the use of pharmaceuticals and administering and dispensing pharmaceuticals. but that's the only one that it doesn't do. So we're starting to get there, but we've got some work to do. The biggest confusion that we're having now is between enhanced and advanced practice. So we're getting a lot of individuals that are in the medical imaging community that are having difficulty setting the bar for advanced practice. We believe that enhanced practice activities are essential for the growth of the profession. So there's a lot of different people here that will be doing a lot of enhanced practice activities already. So injecting drugs, things like Bescapam, doing things like putting in PICC lines and things along those lines. We all believe that these are key elements to what might potentially lead to the development of a fully fledgling advanced practice role. And we really believe that CAMRT's responsibility is to support the profession in terms of innovations, regardless if they're both at the enhanced level or the advanced level. So we want to make sure that we give everybody the opportunity to try and move the profession forward. And I think, if we're looking at advanced practice roles, looking at them from a technological standpoint is a bit of a mistake, because we all know that our technology changes. So trying to develop a role based on a technology is kind of a folly to start. So we really want these roles to be clinically based and so that they're adaptable. In the advanced practice and radiation therapy world, we have 25 active people that are working in what we consider to be these roles. They work in about 8 or 9 different roles, but even the roles and the sub-roles underneath, the roles within their individual sites look different. But it's the theoretical knowledge and skills that they have in common that what makes them advanced. So working with the champion sites, we're really looking at developing the roles from the ground up. So the one thing that we really need to do right off the hop is to define a patient population, what that model of care might look like. In order to move this type of work forward, we need to identify the stakeholders and recruit participants. So my key takeaway message that I've been giving to the groups that I've been talking to is that we need champions in what I consider the 3 main phases of development. So we need medical radiation technologists that are clinical in nature to take on an interest in this. We need managers and leaders to take an active role in pursuing these types of roles and supporting them. But we also need support from the clinicians, such as the radiologists, in order to move this type of piece forward. We need to determine what that new model of care is. What gap are we looking at and what are we filling? What does that need take away? What does a process map look like in terms of how do we develop and roll this out? We need to identify some of the problems and the goals. So we need to talk about the regulatory issues related to this. So if we're working beyond our scope of practice, we need to make sure that CMRTO is on board and is actually going to be able to sign you off on making sure that you have the delegated medical functions in place in order to do the work that you're trying to take on. Risk management within the facility is also another big thing in terms of the professional liability insurance here. And then the funding model, who's going to pay for this? How are we going to get this done? All big questions. And then finally, defining the new role and the model. So there's a lot of different things to consider here in terms of unions, pay scales, funding and approval, and what those job descriptions will ultimately look like. So a lot of the challenges that we're seeing are related to the education of how we get these people up to speed. In the radiation therapy world, the oncologists spent a lot of time educating people to get them up to speed, and we're hearing from the meetings that we've had that they're 18 to 24 months sometimes to get them up to speed. So there's a lot of commitment that has to go into these. There's issues with departmental culture in terms of support, but also the technologists that are taking it on, but also the ones that don't want to support it from an internal piece. So my suggestion is that if you aren't interested in doing an advanced practice role, that you at least support the people that are, and try not to be an extra barrier for them in that place. I've talked about the champions and the needs for those. One of the major things that we talked about in the API group that we had together the other day was the need for funding, and it's certainly something that we're going to be looking for as we move forward. There's still a lot of evidence and research that needs to be done, but we really need to start getting some clinical experience in what that looks and feels like on the ground. I've already talked about the provincial issues. The one thing that's going to be difficult is the communication strategy. So from a CMRT perspective, we're trying to do some documentation in terms of newsletter articles and things along those lines to get a sense of giving people what it's going to mean to be the differentiation between enhanced and advanced, for instance, and where we are with advanced practice in medical imaging. One of the things that we're planning on doing through the task force and through our professional practice advisory committee is to develop a survey on advanced practice in medical imaging to help try and identify more champions And your group here, we had a meeting with 5 of your managers and directors this week. They would be very interested in hearing about your thoughts about what an API role might look like in your own community. So I'll skip this slide because we've already done it, but I'll talk about the API task force, which is what we've just done over the last couple of days. So what we're trying to do is build a national coalition to consult, to collaborate, and evaluate potentially the development of APMI roles. So the goals of this initial task force are just going to be pretty simple: to set up a terms of reference in terms of what it's going to mean going forward, and to identify a role that we might want to be considering for development. And the key takeaway message is that we need to start developing our local core champions, and that's part of the reason why I'm here talking to you today, because we really want to find those niche areas where we think we can make an advance in the practice of medical radiation technologists here at JDMI. So I'll stop there and ask if there's any questions from the audience or from online, and then I will go on to the second part of the presentation as well.
Hello. My question is that everything that you kind of described for the advanced practice also sounds to me like the fellowship. So what's the difference between if you wanted to pursue the CAMRT fellowship as opposed to what you guys are trying to do, move forward with the advanced practice?
The fellowship is pretty significantly different, and the fellowship's a combination of volunteerism within the community. It's a combination of maybe a research project, a one-off. What we're really looking for here is that clinical focus based on the patient, and really taking a higher level of expectation. So when we're talking about the clinical expectations, I'll give you a few examples because it's a little bit easier to quantify with an example. So I'll give you an example that we've been talking about around breast imaging. What we're seeing in an advanced practice breast imaging position would be somebody that would be able to do potentially a soft copy read of an image and say, okay, yeah, that looks like it's more than likely a cancer. Go do an ultrasound, bring that patient along, do the core biopsy themselves, and give all the patient information to them in one day so they can get in and out the door. It's very, very different from the fellowship model, which is more of a streamline that you accumulate over maybe 8 to 10 years or 15 years or 20 years of practice. It's really specific to a disease site or to a pathway within the clinical environment. So does that answer your question? Yes. Great, thank you.
Mark, are you talking about something analogous to, in the nursing world, a nurse practitioner versus an RN? Is that really kind of conceptually along the lines of what you're thinking?
Yeah, conceptually that's exactly where we're trying to go. We're really trying to set the bar to that next level of clinical practice. So in terms of making sure that our members are having that clear differentiation between a nurse practitioner level, that we want to have that full, comprehensive set of abilities that will make somebody an advanced practitioner in medical imaging.
So just like a nurse practitioner to me does treatment. We looked at like for imaging to do reporting, like provide a actual report, like I guess like the in England where they're doing
sure.
reporting.
So from an imaging perspective and an image reporting perspective, the UK has done a phenomenal job in terms of their consultant level positions in their advanced practice roles. From a Canadian perspective, the Canadian Association of Radiologists that we worked with very closely kind of believes that's kind of a no-go area for us to start, and we kind of agree with them. We believe that there's a lot of other opportunities that we have that aren't related to copy reading, and it's not a hill that we're willing to die on to start. We think there's a lot of opportunities beyond image reporting, but that's certainly something to consider. The radiologists are also they've got a lot of other things coming at them, so for us to come at our closest colleagues as well is wouldn't be a great timing. We need their support in order to move forward, so that's a key element.
Have you approached the government about any type of funding as far as for their support in this type of?
Yeah, we haven't approached them specifically yet. I think we still we have a little bit more work to do in terms of getting our ducks in a row to go after some grant money. We talked about that an awful lot in our meeting in the last couple of days. So we need to get some of our data in place, what our asks are, what our wants and requirements are, what we think the impact of a potential role would be, and then really have commitment from the sites to say, yes, we're going to go ahead with this, and then we can start looking at significant pockets of money.
It's gonna benefit the government.
Yeah, what's the benefit for the patients, which will ultimately benefit the government? And I think that's kind of the two take-home messages that we're looking at right now.
Just to take it one step back, and not only the reporting, but how about the protocoling piece, where a radiologist would normally protocol a study, would it be advanced practice take care of that part?
There's certainly a perspective for that. Obviously, there's a lot of knowledge, skills, and judgment that would need to be built into that, and a lot more broader depth in terms of our abilities to do that. But yeah, I think that would be something that would be both beneficial for us as far as an appropriateness piece goes, but it would also be beneficial for the radiologists to allow them to do what they need to do with their time.
Thanks, Mark. Probably not a question, but more for comment for the entire audience as well as yourself. If I understand correctly, I think JDMI is going to be participating in some of the task force work. I think we're happy to be represented. I think we're very supportive of this. In terms of the audience, what we would love to do is hear from you where you see these gaps. I think we've heard pockets of opportunities. What we'd love to do is sit down and hear where do you see a more comprehensive opportunity or gap, and maybe it's multiple gaps that come together, where a technologist can use clinical acumen to make decisions about the patient. So less about tasks and less about performing something and more about holistically looking after the patient. And I think Mark gave a great example in breast imaging. Think about it, talk to your colleagues, and I think we'd love to hear and then help guide CAMRT in putting something together, and perhaps we could even be a pilot site.
Yeah, that would be great, Paul. I really appreciate that. The other thing too, though, if you do have things that are task-oriented and that would be considered an enhanced practice role, please bring them to your attention as well. Those are equally valuable in terms of moving the patient forward. So I think that's great. Any other questions? Okay. I do have another part of the presentation related to our communities of practice that I'll just touch on briefly, and really do appreciate your time and your patience. When we're talking about communities of practice, the rationale behind that is we really want to evaluate and nurture a platform that encourages knowledge sharing and knowledge creation. One thing that I've noticed in my 20 plus years of being an MRT, it's hard to believe it's been that long already, but I've really noticed that MRTs are horrible at sharing information amongst ourselves. So we very rarely communicate site to site in terms of what we're doing that's best practice, how we advance ourselves, what we're doing even between ourselves in terms of tricks or trades that we do. And what we're trying to do is we're really trying to foster nationally based conversations about what MRTs need to do. So, you get a new scanner or you get a new piece of equipment that you've never used before, you have your couple days of apps training, and then all of a sudden the apps people are gone, and you're like, well, what does this do? Or what would be a really good protocol for this particular disease site that a doctor wants us to do? And we don't really do a great job of reaching out to our broader stakeholders across the country. So we're looking to build a platform that will allow us to communicate and share knowledge and create knowledge across the platform. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to get a large collective of volunteer members to apply and apply themselves to a platform and really try to improve the profession and move it forward. We're looking for members that share a common interest, experience, and we're willing to do that in a lot of different aspects. So the platform that we've chosen allows us to have discipline-specific groups, so you can actually only sign up for things that are of interest to you. So if you're interested in CT and CT alone, you can go into CT and not hear all the other stuff that goes with it. We really want them to be interactive, and we thought that having something that based on an internet-based platform would be much more beneficial than anything else. So in terms of making the reality, we've done all the theoretical work, and we've already designed, launched, and led the development of the piece. Now we're getting in the sustaining and the nurturing components, which are the two big ones, but also the two most difficult to do. We have 490 members of our communities of practice, but the communities of practice are kind of crickets at the moment. There's not much going on in there at all. And what we really would like to do is that we would like to ensure continuing participation and then the learning and the continuing generation of knowledge. But what we do need, I believe, is that we need some champion sites to take on an active role in moving this type of agenda forward. In order to try and be successful, we've been working with McGill University. This is Samir Faraj, who's he has a PhD in what's called complex collaboration and online collaboration. So we went to the sources, the best people to get the work done. We've been working with one of his PhD students named Takumi, who's been helping us in terms of the development of our communities of practice and trying to help us avoid some of the pitfalls. We've fallen into a few of them, I'm not going to lie, but we are trying our best to try and take what we can and move forward with what we have. So what we're really looking to do is to collaborate with the end user in mind. So we wanted to get an understanding of what the online community looks and feels like. We talked about the technologies that we were looking for, and then we want to talk and continue to engage the community and what kind of content they'd like in the community. So from a technology decision standpoint, we decided on the Slack platform. Does anybody know Slack? All right, we got a few people that are yeah, and some people with their hands up. So. Oh yeah, good. So we have the iPad winner from our original contest to get it rolling in a couple of years ago. Congratulations, that's great. CAMRT is very good at giving away gifts for your participation. We do appreciate it, and that's nice to see that somebody locals won that. So what we've been trying to do with this is look at the pros and cons of it when we looked at the platforms that were available. And the reason why we picked Slack was, number one, we were looking at about 12 or 15 technologies, and during the time we were looking at them, 4 of them disappeared, which was quite funny, and we were concerned that others would be gone. So we wanted to find something that was pretty robust and had a pretty good standing in the community as it was. We wanted it to be user-friendly and accessible. We wanted the content to be searchable, so there's a great search bar up on the corner. You can just type in any keyword and it'll find you to where you're going. We wanted to have people to have one-on-one discussions as well as group discussions. We all know that privacy around hospital information, not patient information, but even protocol sharing and things like that is often not looked at in a good way. So we wanted to have people to have the ability to share documents back and forth in a private setting. We wanted to keep open channels, private channels, and direct messaging. So we have channels that are open to everybody in the public. We can make private channels for a group or a subgroup. So if you wanted to have a group meeting of particular people even within your own site, you can give us a call and we can set something up so you can have a workspace within that. We thought it was really important that there'd be file sharing. So any kind of file can be dropped onto this platform, whether it be a Word document, PowerPoint, video links, YouTube videos, et cetera, et cetera. And then we wanted to be able to accept notifications from other apps. So we realized that Slack and our piece isn't the only technological piece out there, so we wanted to have those interlocking and links. Some of the cons, as there's a bit of a learning curve to the Slack platform. It's not huge, but there's certainly some considerations there. And the fragmentation is another. With having so many different channels open, do we split the groups so many different ways that we're watering down the content and the material? And then the last con for me that's not on the list is that keeping that critical mass going so that it's actually lively and there's a robust conversation that's going on. And if people put something in there, they're getting a response back, and that's kind of the bigger concerns. So I talked about the networking and how Slack works. That's kind of a bit more of an overview there. So in terms of building our community, we felt it was very important that we had a code of conduct, and that's monitored. So all the information that's there is being monitored during the pieces. We have moderators for each of the channels so that they're watching for things that are inappropriate and things along those lines. We wanted to make sure that the community was secure for MRT, so it's for MRTs only, and there's no outside sources, so we're not having people rogue spamming. You can get your work from home for $99 on top of everything else. So we wanted to make sure that that was a big part of it. if you are interested in signing up, there's a website banner that you can click and sign up through there. What we're in the process of doing right now is that we're really trying to rebuild and to restructure. So we're working with our Professional Practice Advisory Council, and I've got a meeting with them at the end of the month. And we're looking to expand the use of Slack and how we can get it integrated. But one of the things that we will need is we'll need some of the larger sites and some of the thought leaders, such as yourselves, to take an active role in trying to get this up and going. So like I said, the sustainability is the big piece for us. We are seeing that there's what we call a lot of lurkers. So we have a lot of people on the platform, 490 something on the platform. We have maybe 10 or 15 people that post regularly, but we have probably about 75 or 100 people that regularly go in and look, but don't participate in the conversation. So it's an interesting animal. But that critical mass for us, like I said before, is what's going to be required for it to reach sustainability, and that's what we're looking for from a CMRT perspective. From a CMRT and working at CMRT, we're very proactive in terms of trying to take on new tasks, and we're not afraid to fail at things. This is something that we were hoping was going to be a little bit farther along. We're not willing to give up on it yet. But we are going to need the community to step up and take on a little bit more of an active role in it if it's going to be sustainable. And I've already talked about those two things. And just I can stop there and ask if there's any questions around the communities of practice.
Can an MRT register if they're not a member of CMRT?
Not currently, but that's something that we'll be looking to address within the PPAC as well. We really do see this as a member benefit, though, in terms of being able to be part of these groups and being active. So the initial conversations that we had and with the board of directors specifically was that we felt this is a real tangible benefit for being a member, and we're really careful about what we think are general purpose things, like our best practice guidelines and things along those lines. We want the entire population to do them, but there's certain things that are member benefits that we probably will keep in-house.
And what are your communities currently on? Are they just they're modality based?
Some of them are modality based. We have some working groups that are in the background that are private channels. We have some that are related to MR safety, and there's a couple of other things in there that are different. And there's administrative channels, and we have groups for different things. Some of our councils and committees have working platforms in there as well.
That was going to be my next question. If you have an administrative group.
Yeah, we do have a leadership group in there. It's not. It sometimes is pretty active and sometimes not. It's actually been one of our more busier channels, so it's quite good. Yeah. But again, it's something that maybe we'll push through your group, through CRAD and a couple of others, and see what we can do to get them on there. There's some potential wins for us in terms of getting everybody on there, and then obviously the membership element might not be as much of a stringent thing because a lot of them wouldn't be our members anyways. So. Any other questions at all? Not seeing any. I'd just like to thank you all again for your time, particularly those who took in the webcast. And thanks again, and have a wonderful night.